Squid Game is not like anything else on television. Think Hunger Games meets Parasite, a gory dystopian thriller on track to be the most watched streaming sensation ever.
MrBeast is the biggest YouTuber on the planet, and he is creating the world's first real-life Squid Game.
Squid Game: The Challenge is the highly anticipated spin-off of the most watched series in Netflix history.
The series pits contestants against each other in a life-and-death struggle for survival.
But the show is facing accusations from a number of contestants of excruciating and horrific shooting conditions.
Contestants, quote-unquote, unreasonable and unsafe conditions. Again, all of these allegations.
When we competed in red light, green lights, it was 24 degrees Fahrenheit that day.
Underfed, overtired contestants, stressful, exhausting.
I was competing in, just the tracksuits for 7.5 hours.
Those left are vying for the largest cash prize in game show history, $4.56 million.
And so that is what they're talking about, really, all of these contestants here kind of vying for this $5 million cash prize.
I have come to absolutely despise Squid Game and the way it has permeated through parts of American pop culture. Now, I've talked about this a bit before in a video I did on Netflix's Squid Game reality show, but I actually like the original Squid Game series. Season 1 came out in 2021, Season 2 came out last month, and I think at the very least we can all agree that the show is an effective commentary on social class and how capitalism pushes people to the point where they'd be willing to sacrifice their lives for a chance to get ahead, all while rich people spectate on their respective downfalls for entertainment. This analysis has been done to death. It's not new, it's the cultural narrative of our time, and it's a big part of the reason why Squid Game as a property became so popular and so valuable. Since the original Squid Game debuted, we've seen endless discussion about its themes, parodies of the show's iconography, and of course, a number of reality show equivalents. Netflix's own Squid Game reality show called The Challenge, a Squid Game in real life internet series created by this guy who we'll talk about in a sec, and now another series produced on Amazon Prime created by that same guy. All of these reality shows based off of Squid Game have similar characteristics. You have a massive amount of players with no real identity. They're usually wearing a tracksuit with some kind of identifying number. They're all competing for a large sum of money, and since these big companies that produce these shows aren't actually allowed to kill anyone yet, they're not allowed to kill anyone yet. We often get these insidious mind games disguised as challenges, where players have to sacrifice themselves to prevent their fellow competitors from being eliminated, or they're eliminated for a harsh and sometimes arbitrary reason that has nothing to do with the actual games. This happens because they need a thinned out number of players for the challenges, but they want the spectacle of this mass amount of people to convey this message to the audience of epicness and excess. This was more or less the formula for Squid Game: The Challenge on Netflix, and it also appears to be a similar format for a new show on Amazon Prime, MrBeast Games, or Beast Games, I guess. So before we talk more in depth about this new show, let's talk about the man at the center of it all.
I built 2 massive circles and put 100 boys in one and 100 girls in the other. I recreated Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in real life. And one of these 10 people is gonna walk away with this chocolate factory. We literally have $1 million in cash here, so if he survives 100 days, he can become a millionaire. You're gonna be poor.
Jimmy Donaldson is a 26-year-old YouTube star who is known for his viral game show-esque videos, where he lets strangers compete for money, or he's giving out large prizes to people who need it. For a while, no one was allowed to criticize anything that this fucker did because you'd immediately be met with the response from his many dick riders of, oh, well, he's giving away money. Would you rather him just hoard all his wealth? He's actually trying to do something about the inequality problem in America. Anyone who criticizes him is just jealous. And then a trans woman who he employed was outed as a predatory piece of shit, and then all of a sudden these dick riders who were saying that it should be illegal to criticize MrBeast because he's done so much good for society with his philanthropy, they all started exposing him and talking about what a piece of shit he was. Like, it totally became fine after that. So earlier this year, MrBeast was hit with a number of allegations concerning the behavior of his staff, subpar conditions on the sets of his videos, and mistreatment of his own employees. There are thousands of videos delving into these allegations that that for some reason all have these corkboard and string thumbnails, but it's safe to say that nowadays MrBeast is not the beloved Christ figure among the internet community that he once was. MrBeast's persona is so interesting to me because prior to all of his scandals and controversies, I kind of just read him as like the modern day equivalent of a game show host, although a little bit less charismatic, who makes content that's just exclusively catered to the most brain-rotted of 10-year-olds. Every one of MrBeast's videos is loud and fast-paced and overstimulating, but after you watch one of them, you generally come away feeling, kinda good about it, because a random average Joe usually wins in the end. Even MrBeast's original Squid Game series on YouTube is not that cynical. They mostly just recreate the iconic games from the show, the grand prize is only $400,000, and even the second place contestant gets 10 grand. But Beast Games is a different beast entirely. It's not exactly a Squid Game ripoff directly, like it's marketed as its own separate thing, but the common tropes and elements that I mentioned are all there, just grander. As of recording this video, only 3 episodes of Beast Games have been released, but I've seen enough to understand that the vibe and whole point is just cruelty. 1,000 players enter this sterile, flashy arena with the allure of $5 million hanging over their heads. Immediately, they're offered money to leave, and some of them do. From here on out, some of the challenges are skill-based, like trivia and stacking block towers and playing a giant game of beer pong, but a lot of the tasks are focused on making people give up without a fair shot. Each round, multiple people have to sacrifice their own chance at winning for the games to continue, which is something that we also saw in Squid Game The Challenge. And each time, it's painful and awkward to watch because the contestants who we don't really get to know talk about how they need this life-changing amount of money, which of course they're not entitled to, they signed up to play a game. But regardless of that, there's just no joy in any of this. There's a scene in one of the episodes where 4 captains are selected to stand on a platform above their team members as a counter with a dollar amount steadily climbs above them. If they push a button to take that money, the people below them get eliminated. The counter goes up to $1 million while MrBeast and his cronies try to egg them into taking it, and none of them do. Later on, one of these captains who makes this sacrifice gets arbitrarily eliminated in a game where the objective is to get one of your team members to quit. Some of the players decide this by playing a kids game like the Marble Challenge in the original Squid Game show, all while masked members are handing them various items in these little isolated cubes. Like, it's literally Squid Game, but instead of killing people, they're just making them really, really sad. It just has made me think a lot about how, Squid Game and MrBeast Productions are 2 completely different entities on paper in everything. In medium, in genre to some extent, like in production, and yet they've culturally morphed into becoming like the same thing and representing the same niche of entertainment and the same kind of value. A lot of times, like MrBeast Squid Game related entities and the actual Squid Game show tend to coincide with each other and inform one another in terms of commentary. And that's like really weird, right? Like, that's really fucking weird. Like, MrBeast can be anything and do anything, and for a while his videos represented that sort of sandbox kind of quality. But once Squid Game came out, he slowly started adapting that aesthetic to the point where Amazon gave him a whole show based around that idea. It's not even their IP, so why? Is it because he's embracing his villain arc, like sort of a mask-off moment after all these allegations came out about him and his production? Is it because he just really likes Squid Game, or he's playing on the fact that there is a prominent mental association between the two at this point? I guess that wouldn't be so bad if the whole point of Squid Game wasn't so, violent?
Hey, Natasha. Well, Saturday Night Live even joked about the internet's obsession with the suspected murderer last night. Social media users are flooding the internet calling to free Luigi.
New tonight, the federal government reports that there has been a double-digit jump in American homelessness compared to last year, and an even bigger jump among families.
Elon Musk and I talked within about an hour ago, and we talked about the extraordinary challenges of this job. And I said, hey, you want to be Speaker of the House? I don't know.
Our country is evolving into an oligarchic society and into 2 very different Americas.
I can't speak for other parts of the world, but here in America, wealth inequality is the story of the ages. Nobody can buy a house or afford healthcare. It's 60 degrees in December, the nerdiest motherfuckers you know are reanimating John Lennon with AI and pretending like they're good at making actual art. Like, it's bleak out here. It's hard to be optimistic. It's the year of the doomer. And I think the thing that makes us feel comfort in this new reality isn't hope or the belief that things will get better, it's other people suffering. There's a good chance that your TikTok feed is currently filled with ungrateful moms getting dunked on because they dared to express that they're a little upset with their kids' angel tree gifts this year, or skits of entitled customer archetypes getting humbled by the average Joe employee. The suffering is the thing that's making people feel better, and MrBeast, who despite all of his controversies, still has the same goal of appealing to as many people as possible during these turbulent and unprecedented times. So he's probably well aware of that fact, right? Like, he kind of has to be. I mean, just go to the Beast Game subreddit. Most of the people there aren't praising the team captains from the show who sacrificed $1 million to save their team. They're calling them idiots. They're manifesting the downfall of two brothers on the show who work to fuck over another player and bully her into leaving. The rules change based on the kind of suffering that they deem to be righteous at that moment. They're not rooting for anyone to win. They're taking delight in all of the horrific ways that these people lose. All the while, Jimmy and his friends are there to be relatively antagonistic and generally uncharismatic. I'm thinking specifically about one scene during the beer pong game where this lady is trying her hand at some admittedly awkward banter with MrBeast, and he doesn't try to save it at all. He just looks at her and goes like, okay. As if he's like disgusted that she's even there in the first place. At least back in the day, game show hosts would try to like banter and pretend to be friendly with contestants that they didn't like. That used to be like a requirement of the job. It's all so weird and unfeeling and cruel, and the problem is that none of it has any point. At least Squid Game, in its original fictional incarnation, was thematically pointing to the fact that all of this is bad, you know? But MrBeast is never going to say that any of this is bad. He's assuming this aesthetic and identity without ever engaging with the meaning of it all. It's uncanny, and in turn, I think it's actually making the product that it's originally based on kind of worse. Next up, we're gonna talk about Squid Game Season 2. No spoilers here. You are safe. No spoilers. Cool. So it's no secret that Squid Game Season 1 was a massive hit, and Netflix, which is like a parody of a real company at this point, forced it to become this massive mega hit of a thing to the behest of the series creator. In fact, in an interview, here's what he said about the upcoming second season. "I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. In a way, I have to say I'm so sick of Squid Game. I'm so sick of my life making something, promoting something, so I'm not thinking about my next project right now. I'm just thinking about going to some remote island and having my own free time without any phone calls from Netflix, not the Squid Game island. I had no intention of doing a second season because the overall process of writing, producing, and directing the series was so challenging. I didn't think to do another one." And while there's no real significant dip in the show's quality from season 1 to season 2, you know, the performances are great, the characters and conflicts are pretty solid, I found myself being really unable to get into it at all. The first season felt like a truly linear, self-contained story with interesting characters and production design, and this season just feels lumbering and exhausting. Maybe because it's not quite as singularly focused on the actual games and more so on the characters trying to infiltrate them, but I also find the season's conversations about class divide and inequality to be entirely soulless. Some of these characters have a clear contempt for the poor, and that's intentional, but I really don't buy it because Netflix clearly shares that same contempt. For me, it's legitimately making it harder to get immersed in this whole world. There's a whole conversation about crypto that makes me want to throw up. Like, I cannot feel anything for these characters when I know there's a Squid Game theme park just around the corner, you know what I mean? I also think that the aesthetic of the whole show is just so played out that I find nothing about it to be novel or interesting anymore. I've seen so many green tracksuits and pink guys in masks and bleak-looking dormitories, and I just find it so interesting that in all of the 2020s so far, this is the thing that has become so overexposed that it kinda sucks now. It's this decade's banjo stomp clap hey music or bacon and mustache obsession. Most people don't even call it the right name. The show is called Squid Game. Everyone calls it Squid Games. Season 2 is also 7 episodes. Like, in what world should that ever be considered a full and complete season of TV? The show is slowly entering content slop territory, and Netflix is just letting it happen, to the point where MrBeast has literally co-opted the entire franchise as part of his own personal brand. It's genuinely so depressing and bizarre, and I feel like more people need to be talking about it. And that's not to say that you're a bad person for liking mindless reality TV. For those of you who don't know, the whole reason I'm somewhat relevant on this platform is because I used to overanalyze seasons of a show where drag queens are subjected to harassment by an online fan base comprised of the unfunniest people on the planet. Like, you can think that the Beast games are ontologically evil but still come away with the assessment that parts of it are entertaining. I'm sure Amazon and Netflix are reveling in this synergy that their two respective shows have created, but like, will any of this actually age well? Sure, MrBeast is on top of the world right now, but it won't always be that way. Is aligning himself with a burgeoning K-drama already past its prime really the best way to go? Either way, I'm kinda over it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. A reminder that you can connect with me at all the social media listed in this beautiful link tree, which can be found in the description down below. You can also subscribe to my Patreon for just $2 a month for a weekly bonus unlisted content. Happy New Year. Eat your vegetables, or don't if that's not your thing. I'm not your mom. See you later.